Good afternoon. Okay, the activities that we have in this afternoon are sponsored by the Spanish chapter of the IEEE Council on Electronic Design Automation. So before starting with the panel session, I will start with a brief introduction to the Spain chapter and the Best Paper Award. My name is Francisco Fernandez from the University of Sevilla, and I am currently the chair of the Spain chapter of this council. So, what is CIDA? CIDA is the Council on Electronic Design Automation. It's an IEEE council with 6 parent societies: antennas and propagation, circuits and systems, computer, electron devices, microwave theory and techniques, and solid-state circuits. So it deals with horizontal activities with the scope of these societies. CIDA focuses on the theory, implementation, and use of electronic design automation and CAD tools to design integrated electronic circuits and embedded systems. CIDA is engaged in multiple activities, and between them we can emphasize a number of awards that are presented to most prestigious researchers. It also sponsors several publications like the IEEE Transactions on Computer-Aided Design, the IEEE Design and Test Journal, and the IEEE Embedded System Letters, and it also sponsors either technically or financially a number of conferences. From 2016, we have a distinguished lecturer program so that most renowned experts within the scope of CIDA give presentations, give keynotes at different conferences and events around the world. It also supports conferences, workshops in general. It is open to any activity that is proposed by the member of CIDA. Since 2018, it is also involved in a joint activities with a student activity program with the CAD Society, and it also sponsors student travel grants for all CIDA-sponsored conferences and workshops. The Spain chapter of the CIDA was established in 2017, so we are a young chapter. Now, currently there are about 15 chapters around the world, and the Spain chapter is the first chapter in Europe. So I would like to also use this opportunity to encourage you to affiliate to CIDA. If we are able to have activities like those in this afternoon and so many other activities, it's because we have the CIDA support. And we have the CIDA support, we have a significant number of members. Luckily, for all of us, affiliating to CIDA is for free for any IEEE member. So at any moment, you don't have even to wait until the renewal of your IEEE membership. At any moment, you can connect to your membership page, and you can see that as we have here, for my own membership, adding the membership of IEEE CIDA is free. So please, if we want to continue activities, we want to have the support of CIDA, we need members. You can have a look. We have a web page that is indicated there. You can have a look there to all the events that we are organizing and have information about the events that we are celebrating in the next few months. I would also like to invite you to the annual meeting of the Spain chapter that will be held tomorrow in the Barandiaran room at 9:30 in the morning. Either if you are a member of CIDA or not, you are invited to join the meeting so that we can discuss the issues of the chapter and plan activities for next year. One of the activities that we started last year was a Best Journal Paper Award. The requirements is that it must be a paper that must have been published in an IEEE journal within the previous 2 years. The scope, the topic of the paper must be within the scope of CIDA, And a requirement is also that at least one author must be a PhD student or a recent doctor. And this doctor, this PhD student, must be affiliated to a Spanish institution. It is not necessary that the student is a Spaniard, but it must be affiliated, he must be affiliated or she must be affiliated to a Spanish institution. So this was started last year. A jury of 3 members met to decide on the winner of this call. I have to thank Antonio Lopez from the CAS Society. He was very kind to organize the review of the candidacies so that the process was completely blind even to the CEDA board. So I know there was a jury of 3 members, but even I don't know who they were. So we have a winner of the Best Journal Paper Award of the Spain chapter, and the prize goes to, I have to say also that we have for the prize is not only a diploma, but also a check with 500 euros. So is Josue in the room? So the winner is Josue Pagan. So we continue with the activities. So we are organizing again this award for this year. So until December the 31st, you have time to submit your proposals. So you have in the webpage of the Spanish chapter, you can see all the conditions and the process to submit your candidacies. So that's the end. We now move to the panel session.
Don't go. Okay, so thank you for coming. We're excited really about this new topic that we have brought to this conference. It's the first time that we deal with a women and engineering topic, something new. And then we thought that it would be nice to approach that problem in a different way. So what we are planning to do here is not the conventional panel structure that we have seen in other editions of the conference, but instead we want to use this opportunity to have you participating more than usually. Okay, so the idea is we will do the panel discussion as a standard way, more or less, together with what we call a brain mixing approach. That brain mixing approach is kind of brainstorming, brainswarming, but not totally pure brainstorming. Okay, so we have experts on the technique. Don't expect to be that really perfect. So we have here for the panel discussion the members that I will introduce later when they will start speaking, but just now to know, Teresa Riesgo is just in the middle of the table. She's from UPM and Director of General Investigation, Development and Innovation of the Spanish government. Celia Lopez is on the right corner from your side, from Universidad Carlos III. Linda Mylor, the second from here, she's from Georgia Tech. Natividad Garcia is from NAVAP Consulting. She's here next to me on my left. And Eduardo Alarcón, that's easy to recognize, from UPC, second from the last part. So the new topic is something that is the society is asking us for a change, and we have thought that, as Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in the world. So you and me and we all have to participate in not only discussing the topic, but also trying to provide solutions. So that's what we are planning to do here, and we expect to obtain not only one, but maybe many possibilities or solutions to try to focus or to address the women and engineering problem that we have seen. So Instead of having the traditional panel structure, with the panelists just with a statement and maybe a debate, and only a few of you raising the hand and asking a question or maybe expressing an opinion, what we want to do is a new approach. A new approach is based on the design thinking methodology, and we have Carlos, that is the third organizer of the panel, that is behind us, with 3 boards that will be used. Carlos, could you explain us the technique?
Thank you very much. So we are trying to change a little bit, as you say. In principle, I'm here because I will act as a secretary of the kind of things that you will do. The approach has a very high risk. I'm not sure what will happen, especially because I think that the panelists are really top people that are really with many ideas that will be excellent for the discussion, and we are adding this additional element. But the objective would be, as Marisa has said, that what we are looking for is ideas, as many as possible, to address the problem that we want to discuss today. So the design methodology is something that started from the concept of design that we, the engineers, really are very familiar with that, and to bring that in a way that can guarantee that we can provide as many ideas as possible, and based on that we are in the position to be competitive, to differentiate, to do something different. And the second aspect is we would like that all of us have the image of being contributing to the change that is necessary, as Marisa has explained. And so the idea that we plan to follow is the one that is put in the slide. The first approach will be that somebody, that is Paco, will make a definition of which is the challenge, what we have in our hands, and that phase has been called inspiration. So the idea is he will help us to inspire for the second phase, that will be all of you participating in defining ideas. What I would like to stress is the idea that what we look for is as many ideas as possible, not the idea, because none of us has the solution. What we would like is to have as many ideas as possible for the solution. We have called that ideation. And finally, the third one would be the implementation. If we have time, because we have planned a quite complex agenda, if we have time, what we would like is, after the panel, to have a voting session in which you will choose which are the topics that are more relevant, the ideas that we have in mind that can be more interesting. So what it is expected? You will receive a post-it, some pencils to write that. What I expect is that every idea that you can have is not a long text to describe it. 2-3 words, the minimum possible. The idea is that to have the idea clear, simple, that can be used to be put here in these panels, and we will try really to aggregate things that are similar, to come up at the end with some big ideas that can put together many aspects that we will use for the voting and the contribution that all of us can do in this special panel session. Something I can tell you, we will have very short time. So you need to rush. You need to move, not stay seated. Bring your idea and try to look where it's the best place to be put. That can be similar to somebody else. And the idea is basically that you participate in action, and we have called that brain mixing, because the brainstorming, as you know, is just everybody is giving an idea, and we try to discuss them. So we don't have time for doing that. The second one would be brainstorming, to behave as the swarms are acting, and we don't have also time for that. We have combined that everything, and we have the brain mixing that we have invented. And so this brain mixing means that you put the idea in a very short text. The second aspect is that you will do that in silence. So we can say that it's a silent taking from the brainstorm to create something that is brainstorming. But let's forget about all the aspects that I mentioned. It's just a justification for the kind of things we are looking for. So your task, if you accept that, is to be active in something that needs to be changed. Bring your ideas, as many as you want. You can offer 1, 2, 3, whatever you want. Try to look for the place for that, and later on we will continue. I don't know if there is any question, but I expect that can be a little bit clear what we don't have so much clear. Thank you.
Okay, so the first thing we'll do is to define the challenge. So let's go to the facts that it's very hard to read here. So Paco is going to present us a few facts. It's something objective, just numbers. So Paco,
So I'm going to give you a few numbers, no opinion. The data are not complete, are not exhaustive. It's just some bits of information to stimulate the discussion. As I told you before, one of the activities of SIDA is sponsoring awards that are given, that are presented to the best researchers in the world. One of the most prestigious SIDA awards is the Phil Kaufman Award. The Phil Kaufman Award was presented a couple of weeks ago to Professor Mary Jane Irwin. And I think this is very appropriate to this event because the most prestigious SIDA award was presented to a woman this year. That can be considered an optimistic point of view. Do you also want a pessimistic point of view? The pessimistic point of view is that this year was the 25th anniversary of the Phil Kaufman Award, and it is the first time that it has been obtained by a woman. Now I will give you some. I did nothing. So I will give you now some numbers about women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics STEM degrees. Some time ago, I came across a study of the University of Oviedo. It was a survey of 1,000 university students and 4,000 high school students. And most women of this study declare a worse self-efficacy for STEM subjects. Self-efficacy refers to the individual's belief about his or her own capacity to attain something. So it is significant that most women themselves declare that they were worse for these topics. However, when we go to the data of the university system, Spanish university system, data from last academic course, we can see there is a similar real efficacy. The entry exam at the university were taken by 56.3% of people were women, the rest were men, but the success rate, how many students passed the exam, was practically the same. So that means that even what was the belief of women about their capacity was not real. They had the same performance. Some data about the number of students. According to UNESCO report, the number of women in STEM degrees represent 35%. If we go to a subset of STEM degrees, we go to information, communication, technology degrees, this drops to 3%. If we look at numbers of the Spanish university system, we can see that 75% of the bachelor students in engineering and architecture were male students, were men. 71.4% in master students, and 70.4% in PhD programs. Surprisingly, the percentage of graduates in bachelor and master is slightly smaller. So that means that women have on average, slightly better performance than men in these degrees. If we go to health-related degrees, we have the opposite. We have a majority of women in medicine, pharmacy, these kind of degrees. If we go to other sciences, we have practically 50-50%. This is from the university system, but I also look at the figures of other European countries, practically the same, United States the same, Canada the same, but it is not necessarily related to the level of development of a country. If we go, for instance, to these figures, these numbers are much lower for Japan and much higher for India. So there is not a direct relationship. If we go to a subset of these degrees, we go to computer science, the situation is not only not improving, but worsening. If we compare the percentage of women in computer science studies in Spain between the course 85 to last year, the percentage of women has decreased from 30% to 13%. This is even in contrast with the origin of computer science. You can see it when it is not very clear, but probably most of you recognize the photograph of the ENIAC computer, one of the first computers, 1946, I think. So all the credit for the design and the operation of this computer was given to two engineers, two male engineers. But the team was not only these two male engineers, but 6 women. 6 programmers, the first 6 programmers that developed much of the theory behind that computer science at that time. But only, however, for many years they didn't get the credit, they didn't get the recognition for that. Even this is a curiosity, for many years, many people that look at this photo thought that these women were models, just for commercial purposes, for advertising. But they were not models. They were 2 of the 6 programmers of the machine. So we have a strong presence of women in the origin of computer science. Another significant slide, courtesy of Teresa. The scissor effect. Here we can see in dark green we have women, in light green we have men. In the left we have the number of enrolled students in graduates in bachelor and master. So in bachelor and master we have slight dominance of women. Then we have here PhD. PhD we have practically a balance. But when you go here, what we can see DCPA, this refers to academia. So these are different levels of position at academia. We have from the lowest assistant professorship to associate professor, full professor. So we start from a balance, but then the dominance of men is absolute. The pay gap. If we look at the statistics of different countries, European Union, this is the average salary of women in STEM jobs compared to average salary of men. So average salary of women in European Union is 73.4%, in Canada 82.1%, in the United States 80.3%. However, despite this difference, the salary of women in STEM jobs is still 40% higher than in non-STEM jobs. So they are much better paid jobs. Also, it is significant, however, that the rate at which people leave their jobs, leave their STEM jobs, is much higher in women than in men. And finally, last slide, women on board of directors. We have a directive of the European Union pushing for 40% quote. Which are the recent or current figures? In the largest companies of the European Union, the percentage of women in the boards of directors has increased from 10% in 2005 to 22% in 2015. But only 4% of the chairs or presidents of the companies are women. In the case of Spain, we have 16% in 2016. This percentage increases in the IBEX 35 companies. IBEX 35 companies are the, well, all of you know, but there are some people that don't know, the 35 largest companies in the Spanish stock market. and also 4% of women, of presidents, are women. Interesting, as a measure to increase this vote, we can emphasize here that in Spain there is a tax deduction for women in board of directors, for the companies with women in board of directors since this year. This percentage is 42% in Norway, but in Norway there is a gender quota from many years, by law. The situation, if we restrict to the IT companies, the situation is much worse worldwide. In 28.5% of the companies, there is no woman in the board of directors. Only in 18% of the companies, there are more than 2 women. So, as I told you, this is not complete, just some bits to give you some ideas and start the discussion.
So, before going to the panel, we want you to provide any idea you could think could help to find a balance, at least, between men and women in the engineering context. Okay. And we have 2 challenges that we want you to write anything you think that could be a solution. No. To deal with this problem. So the first one is how to promote STEM degrees between female students. That's one of the problems that we have identified. And the second one is how to promote women to leadership positions. So try to write a couple of words, 2, 3, no more, in the post-it, and go to the back boards, the white boards that are there with Carlos. And then we have 10 minutes the most to do this, and we start the panel. Okay, so is it clear? You will have post-its and pens to write a few words, big if possible, and go there, stick your note on the board, and have a seat back. Come on, don't be shy. Maybe just one idea per post-it, please, and with big letters, big writing. Ideas, what to do, what do you think could be done? May I draw your attention, please? Okay, so meanwhile you are still sticking your notes on the board, we will start the panel presentation and the discussion here, okay? So let's start with Teresa Riesgo, who is very well known to this conference. Teresa holds a PhD in industrial engineering, focused on electronic engineering, and she's professor of electronics at UPN, Universidad Politécnica of Madrid. But now she's in a temporary leave at the General Direction of the Research, Development and Innovation of the Spanish Ministry of Science, Innovation and Universities. So Teresa, could you tell us how do you see this problem?
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me, because for me it's like a real pleasure to meet you all here, and because here I feel at home, and in other places I can tell you I don't. So this is, and another thing is that the topic is very challenging. I don't think, I'm afraid it's difficult to find solutions, but in case we do, it will be great because we can, as I say, now I'm in a position where we can influence somehow in, as I say, if we find interesting measures, I can collect them and send them to the authorities that are in charge of this type of policies, because the universities are actually in our ministry. In the ministry, on the other side, we have started something that we have called an observatory for women in science and innovation. Actually, we are collecting data for innovation because we don't have any. I don't know, in the United States you have, but there are a few data on innovation, in women in innovation. So we are collecting data now, and which is a real challenge. I'm not, as I say, I'm part of the observatory. I'm not running it, so I cannot tell you details about that. But as Paco has used one of the slides I use when I have to talk about women and science, I have to tell that graph, the scissor effect that he has shown, is not only for engineering of science or sciences, for the whole university system in Spain. I can tell you I have data here from the European Union, from this report, because I try to use real figures. That is, this report is called She Figures. It's a report that is published every 2 years, I think, from the European Commission, from the DG Research. And in this report, if you see the numbers in the European Union are even worse. And if you see the ones selected for engineering and science are much, much worse than that. Yeah. So because if here we can see in the full professorship 21 to 79, if we see only engineering and science, we find 15 to 85. So it's even worse. So this is the situation. Yeah. Particularly, another thing that everybody can say is, yes, but this will change because every year will be better. No, no. There are the studies, the numbers tell us that these numbers are almost constant. Yeah, maybe in 10 years' time we change. Yeah, this is what we plan to do. But these are quite stable. Yeah. It's even much worse for computer science, as you have said. And this is very worrying for everybody. As you know, there are a lot of discussions now about the future, the jobs of the future. Yeah? The jobs of the future will be very much based on knowledge that we don't know how it will be. But, of course, with digital literacy will be something that will be required. Yeah? This is a must. Yeah? And it seems that girls are escaping from that. And this is a real problem because we have to be prepared now. I said we have to prepare now the girls, I said, because they will be the workers of the future in 15 or 20 years' time. So this is very worrying from my point of view. Another thing is that it's not just a question of women or men. It's that the question is that in the Western countries we need more engineers and more computer scientists. We need more. There are a lot of open positions in many companies in many places. And we cannot lose half the population for that. Yeah? We cannot afford that. So this is, as I imagine that we say, okay, those who are living, I don't know, in Madrid cannot work in computer science or engineering. It would be very hard. Yeah? So we have to do something for that. What can we do? And this is a personal opinion, yeah, what I say. The previous one are based on data. The following one is not based on data. It's based on what I can see and what I observe in the society. One thing is that we have to change a little bit the role models, and we have to change the social models. Yeah? This means that if you talk with a teenager, and you speak, what do you think about science? And he says, I like very much Big Bang Theory, yeah? Because there's a TV show that everybody relates with science. Okay, that's very nice. Yeah? People love science because they love Big Bang Theory. Great. not that great, yeah? I say, if you see Big Bang Theory, there are two main characters that are women. One is very beautiful, very nice, and very happy, yeah? And she's a waitress, yeah? And the other one is quite ugly, quite unhappy, and she's a scientist, yeah? So if I am an 8-year-old girl or a 10-year-old girl and I watch that movie, I say, I would like to be a waitress because I want to be blonde and be nice and beautiful, yeah, and have, I don't know, nice sex with my boyfriend. And I say, I don't want to be like the other one. So take care with the role models, are very, very important. Disney princesses are another horrible thing for that, yeah? Because if our girls want to be like a Disney princess, maybe they don't want to be a scientist, yeah? Another thing is, Paco has said something that is very important, that is around the study of the University of Oviedo, yeah? That is the self-esteem of the girls, yeah? So we have to tell the girls, yes, you can, yeah? This is something very important. I have met many times, I have gone in my university period, I have gone to many schools to talk with people. You have to study engineering, it's very nice, it's beautiful, you will like it, it's challenging, yeah? And sometimes girls say, but it's very difficult. Yes, it's difficult, but you know what is difficult? Difficult is when you are unemployed and you are 50, yeah? That's difficult. That's difficult, that's real difficult. But when you are 18 and you have to study mathematics, this is not difficult. This is challenging and funny, and you can enjoy a lot, yeah? So this is one thing that we have to tell girls. And another thing is that we have to tell them engineering can change the life of the people, and engineering can change the world. Because if you see, there are many, many girls that want to be medical doctors, for example, at least in Spain. I say there are majority of women in the medicine and in pharmacy and all, biology and all this stuff. And in many cases, they say, okay, I want to help people, yeah? So, but there's nothing like engineering to help people, yeah? Because we can do everything with a focus, with a real focus for the environment, for the people, for the health, for the many other things that we can see in a conference like this. So these three things, for me, are the main things that we have to say. But this is a personal opinion. I don't want that this is taken as an official opinion, because afterwards I can be in a mess, yeah? So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Teresa. Now we go to Celia Lopez Ongil, and she also holds a PhD in industrial engineering with focus on digital electronics. She's associate professor of electronic technology in the University of Carlos III, Madrid. And currently she's leading the UC3M for Safety group, a multidisciplinary team. Is not working? Okay. Oh, yes, sorry. No, she's leading that group, the UC3M for Safety, a multidisciplinary team for detecting, preventing, and combating violence against women, merging knowledge, efforts, and willings from telematics, signal theory, mechanics, electronics technology, and gender studies. So, Celia, she's got some slides, so whenever you want.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me also to this panel, and I want to tell you some ideas I have after studying some about gender studies and thinking about the situation. Well, everybody knows some truths, some statements that feminism is that women and men are equal. Everybody agrees with this, but the problem is what happens with gender roles, because it's true that in laws and equality policies, men and women are equal, but gender roles are not equal, and nobody thinks about the gender roles. And the truth is that the gender roles are making women to decrease their professional activity. At some age, every woman stops growing up in the same way as men. And I I would like you to think about this and why this happens. Why women are not evolving in the same way as men. It's not because they are less smart, less brave, or less, I don't know how to say it. Also, I would like to put you some another figure about gender and sex, and I would like you think about what is gender and what is sex. And because today we don't have two genders and we don't have two sexes. We have a lot of genders and a lot of sexes, and everybody must think about this. But this is another thing, and I would like to state some ideas I have. For example, what can everyone do? Because Teresa has talked about what can we do as professionals, as professors, policy makers, to do for encouraging girls and teenagers to study. But I want you to think what you can do, all of you and all of your colleagues or your families or all the society can do. And to assume and to understand that household is not a female task. Children and elderly are not a female task. Looking after children is not a female task. And looking after elderly or pets is not a female task. Sending emails, arranging meetings, or arranging the coffee breaks, or the lunches, or this task that women do very well, and so as you do very well, do that. It's not our task. That is not our task. That is a task of people in the office or in the company or in the department. And it's a very interesting article in the newspaper El País talking about this, about the time women spend in housework tasks in the university and how this task make them to lower their other activities like making research. And I want everybody to assume that women can manage large teams with large amount of money without getting nervous. We can do that, believe me. And everybody must normalize a man attending family matters, like going to the veterinarian, going to the school parents meeting. Don't worry, they won't kill you. And even women must assume that their mates can do. They can get the children to the pediatrics, and the boy will survive. So, and overall, as Teresa says we need women models. And there are. And I have a video to finish. I don't know what to do this. Okay, thank you. And it's a study, well, it's a very short study.
This is Tyler. Tyler, with Reynolds' help, is writing an email to his boss, Anita.
My favorite subject in school is science, because you can invent all different kinds of cool things, and there's like no limit what you can do.
One inventor is Benjamin Franklin.
Leonardo da Vinci.
Thomas Edison. Albert Einstein.
Nikola Tesla.
Alexander Bell Graham.
No. It's kind of a tough one.
In school, it was always a male inventor. I just realized.
Oh my God, there's so much. I didn't even know they even know that stuff. You're surprised because they only talk about Einstein and Benjamin, but you never hear a girl in a conversation.
To know that there were women before me, it gives me like motivation that I can invent something and make maybe like a change in the world, and that would be really cool.
Well, I think one of the ideas we can do is to translate to Spanish and to put in the schools this advertisement. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Celia. Then we move to our next speaker, that is Linda Mylor. So she is, let me change it. Okay. So thank you for coming, Linda. She is a professor of electrical and computer engineering at the Georgia Institute of Technology. She works in the area of text, yield, and reliability of integrated circuits, and she has got about 200 publications. But before joining academics, she worked in industry as a yield manager and advanced micro devices and as vice president of product engineering at eSilicon Corporation. So, Linda, whenever you want.
Thank you for the introduction. So, in my opinion, the number of women entering STEM comes from a relatively early age. And in my own experience, obviously I was maybe the only girl in my math classes in high school, and that may have been normal, I felt. But then you have kids and you relive the same experience again. So the first thing I did when I got these questions was to ask my daughter, who's in high school, what she thought about it and how she experiences these things at a young age. And she said that the upper end of the class, the top women and the top men, there's no problem. They perform well in classes. They probably are willing to go to STEM unless they're good in all the other topics too. But it's the level below where the men succeed and the women somehow are not getting encouragement, and they gradually drop out and start thinking about going into other topics. And that makes some sense to me. So basically you have a set of women that are really top, and then you have this level right below that we're losing. And in an earlier age, I can see how that can happen, because right now she has a good math teacher who's female and a good role model, and she doesn't ask me any questions when she comes home. But earlier in high school, she had a teacher that was not so good. So guess who had to teach her? Well, it's part of our trade to know mathematics, so it's not a problem for us to teach basic mathematics to your kids. So she would come home and she didn't understand anything from class. So I'd say, okay, now let's do this easy stuff in mathematics. So we'd sit down and learn it. But how many parents can do that? So she went from, being one of the good ones to being one of the top ones, and now she has no problems, but there's a lot that we lose at that stage, that they don't get the appropriate tutoring at the right age. And I don't know what kind of solution we can have for that, but it's at the high school level when something gets hard and the teacher isn't good enough that we are losing some of the good ones, but not the great ones. The great ones will go through anyway. On the topic of being in a male-dominated profession, I think the main issue here is access to information networks. And the access to information networks comes through hanging out with your colleagues, but at some level, the internet is helping. For example, I asked my daughter came home one day and said, in order to succeed in high school, you need to buy the question bank. I said, what? What? A question bank? Has anybody ever heard of a question bank? Nope. I hadn't either. So, so I said, so how much does it cost? $1,000 a year. What is it? Oh, it's all the questions they give to the teachers. together with all the solutions to give them the possible exam questions that they can give in the classes. Together with the solutions and how many points you get for this part of the solution, how many points for that part of the solution. I said, okay, which topics do you need it in? Math and physics. Well, so how did she learn about it? The internet. There's a lot of resources out there. She searches the internet on how to do well in high school. But I think as you go up higher levels in industry, I think personal connections start to matter more, and that makes it a little bit more challenging. When I first became an academic, I noticed that when I joined a university, but I didn't join a group. But all my male colleagues joined groups, and were part of research teams, and were part of the papers of the senior researchers at that university. But not me. Somehow I had to figure out how to make my own networks. I did it by leaving the university and going to industry, and then coming back. And I found that in industry, where you had concrete goals and objectives, that was really good for women. Where in the university, it was less clear. I mean, I guess our objective is to have lots of publications, and I mean, I can play that game as well as anybody, but at the early stages, it's a bit challenging. You really need to be part of a team, and the university should provide that kind of atmosphere if they need it, if they can. Moving up as people move up in industry, I teach a class for seniors in engineering going out into industry, and we prepare people quite well for starting their career. We also try to train them in soft skills, because that's very important in industry, but they're not really aware of what comes next. And I think we do get quite a bit of dropout of women in the industry. Maybe they don't know what they're supposed to do, maybe they don't know what the networks are, but I try to tell people that you have to keep learning after you get your job. You have to move up. We are in a up or out industry, and at least in America, if you haven't moved around a lot, people tend to get laid off. So you have to keep retraining yourself, going to management, and I'm not sure a lot of the people are aware of that, equally aware of that. So I'm not quite sure how people have to move up into the industry, but that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, but we have a member of the panel that comes from the industry, that is Natividad Garcia. So maybe we can pass the question to Natividad. So let me introduce her. Natividad Garcia Rodriguez. She's electronic engineer from the Basque Country University, and she started her career in the I+D field 5 years after she turned to management. She accumulates 20 years of experience managing technology-based companies, including the co-foundation of a technology startup company, and she has also been vice president of Gaia Basque Country TAC Association. So thank you, Nati, whenever you want.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing prepared for this session, so I will just tell you what I think that I suppose that is what you were looking for. I am the one coming from the industry, so I will try to focus the part of the speech in that area. First of all, I think that I can do less than agree with the rest of the panelists, because I think that the biggest problem is change of society. I think that I started my technical education more than 30 years ago, and if we look back, is there a change? After 30 years, is there a change for the ones that we started 30 years ago? The fact is that no, I was alone in my school, and I am the president of technical school right now, and the percentage of women is very, very, very few. So things are not changing. Things are getting, I think they are getting worse, because some years ago there were some careers as the ones related to programming or others that were more or less 50% of women or men. Now that is decreasing. So I think that even though the gender equality, I think that in the streets, I think that it's better right now. It's still something more than that retain women for coming to technical studies. I think there is something more profound than that. No? So, of course, one of the points that I think that has to change is definitely how maths are taught in the primary and secondary schools. I think that is a topic that is being identified in several studies. If you don't feel capable of passing your math exam in, I don't know, let's say with 7 years old, or with 8 years old, you will excuse yourself for taking a technological career for the rest of your life. So, as she told me she helped her daughter. I help my daughters, but not everyone can help their daughters. And the way she told us, I think it was a very, very good point. The great ones will do it anyway, but the rest can also be encouraged to do it, and we are not doing that. I also think that the way that, you know, that there is a system to help the students deciding what to do and what not to do in the early stages. And I think that is not working well. At least it's not working well here. The people who's having that role here in the area that I better know, they are not well prepared. They don't have the instruments. They don't have access to the real data, to what we are doing in the industry or what is being done in the academic field. So I don't think they encourage properly to girls to this kind of studies. I think there are some projects that are helping. I am involved in one of them. I don't know if you know it, but the Deusto University has a project which is called Inspira, and it tries to help encouraging, or let's say, avoiding all those barriers that women find to go and reach these STEAM projects, these STEAM careers. And what we do is we go to school, to primary school, first level of secondary school actually, 13 years old girls and boys, and we separate them and we try to show them how all these stereotypes work. Actually, this video you show them is one of the ones we try to show them. And I think that we have to approach that from that level, try to change the way they think from that level. We are also, all the ones that are over 40 here, we are also part of the problems, because you know that the decisions of our children are based in I think 30% out of our opinion. And the opinion that most of the parents have about technological careers are that are very difficult, that probably they don't worth the effort that they need to take. No? So I think that apart from addressing the schools, the primary schools, we have to address the adults too. I don't know, from the industrial point of view and how I have lived my career, I think that if you have a dream, and if you dare to dream, and you want to get something, I think that we have to encourage women to know that we are unstoppable. If you want to do it, perhaps there is a bit of the balance is not proper. adequate today, but if you want to do something, you can do it. So I think that we have to encourage women, let them know that they can do it if they want to. And the problem, the basic problem for me is that they don't want. It's not that they can't, it's that they don't want. So why women don't want to study technological careers? I think that's the problem that we should address. 30 years ago, they could think that they couldn't, but I think now they know they can, or most of them they know they can, but they don't want. So I think that is a real problem. I think that trying to mix our real interests that could be more related to taking care of people, helping the world or whatever, and associate that with technology is very important. Because I think that they don't really know what STEAM careers, the real jobs that you can address, or the real solutions that you can find from a STEAM career. There are a lot of stereotypes. You don't really know what an engineer do. And there are some stereotypes of an engineer in somewhere that is not socially related, and that a woman doesn't match very much. So I think we have to break all those stereotypes for making them dream with the career. And if they dream with that, they will do it, because we can do it. So that's all.
Thank you, Nati. And last but not least, our minority here in this table is Eduardo Alarcón. He comes from UPC, Universidad Politécnica de Catalunya, Barcelona Tech, Spain. And he is also Vice President of the Technical Activities of the IEEE Security and Systems Society. He's got a long CV, but I like what he said before. Is we can introduce him as an educator, a researcher, and a humanist. So, floor is yours.
Thank you a lot. So, very good evening. It is a true challenge and a humbling privilege to participate in this panel, not just because I'm surrounded by these high-caliber colleague panelists, but because this is a very important topic. We are used to participate in panels where there is an intellectual challenge. No, this is a human challenge and a societal one. So, I will deliberately not use sense of humor and ironic statements, which I like to do usually. Not today. This is too close to home. This is too intimate and too important for all of us to act collectively. Let me make an exception. I'm not a minority here today for the very simple reason that being a humanist, I'm also a feminist, of course. The working definition of a feminist from any encyclopedia is that we think that men and women need to continue working for a true balance of life and therefore in profession collectively until there is no need for feminism. And of course I endorse that definition and I try to live accordingly. So I'm not a minority because I'm not representing a gender. I'm just yet another colleague, scholar, researcher that cares about women in engineering. I must admit at the beginning I was a bit puzzled about the title. I said woman in engineering? Is it woman and engineering? So now, I would like to genuinely thank the three organizers. And this is not just the conventional scholarly politeness. I would like to thank them for a threefold reason. On the one hand, the questions that were posed by Marisa, easy to pose, extremely challenging to address. I think that they are so very well posed. Where are we? Where are we going? And which is the process for that transition? And so the topic is so difficult that for one time I will try to make my reflection that will be a bit conceptual. I'm not talking about personal anecdotes. I don't want to sound anecdotal. I'm not going to talk about what do I do with my kids, with my students, what do I see. It will be too biased, too partial. So I will deliberately be a bit conceptual in addressing how do we need to change the whole system of university research and industry and innovation towards a different regime where there is true stable gender balance. So yeah, extremely well posed question. Second, I would like to thank Paco, because the data and the factual evidence that he gave us eliminates upfront any debate about where do we start from. We do start, the snapshot of the current situation is a terrible, unfair situation of inequality. So very far from balance. So there's no debate about that. So we just need to go to talk about how to go into the future. And I would like to also to thank Carlos, because this brand new methodology that we're not used to not only facilitates active engagement and participation from the audience, but you're also applying design thinking. And the very problem of making a transit from a very unfair and a system with inequality towards a stable gender balanced system, it is a complex system problem. And we can have an engineering standpoint. Which incentives, which mechanisms, which initiatives, particularly for those of us which have the privilege to have capability to establish new policies or actions and making decisions. So yes. So just two reflections as the main two underlying pillars of my position statement. The first one is that we need to make collective actions. So although in the panels we tend to talk, we intellectuals, you, there's an urgent need to call for action. It is action that we need. It is timely to devise action and agree upon the actions we need to take. So that methodology also facilitates taking actions. But those actions need to be collective. I so very much appreciate that Professor Rongil was saying that, so in the past, men and women should act as a whole to improve the unfair situation of women. But what we see now more and more is that women are working to improve the situation for women. I think that we need to reverse the situation, and women and men collectively address the difficulties of women in profession and in engineering. That's the A side on the profession alone. There are communicating vessels with life and family, and I understand that's beyond the topic of the panel, but this is strongly and inextricably intertwined with the profession. We won't be able to foster a real equal balanced situation of men and women until we also show co-responsibility for man and woman beyond profession. So this was only the preamble. I promise I will take 1 minute now to talk about my second main position statement. Well, if I, for once, although this is, as I was saying before, a human problem and a problem of society, if I consider for once, and I rarely do this as only an engineering problem, it's a matter of a transition of a dynamic problem. So time is of essence. Not only it is urgent to act, but time matters. We are designing a complex solution for a very complex system where multiple time scales intervene, and we need to differentiate them all. So of course, I endorse my colleague panelists when they said that we need to educate. But educate, going back to education of child, is something that usually takes 30 years of dynamics. So that, by the way, time justifies your second question. Why is it? Oh, by the way, we have not been discussing about why the situation is unfair now. But that's a very difficult question. We just demonstrated that it is unfair now, and I am assuming that all of us, as a majority, agree that gender balance is the only final way, because we're all educators, and I'm assuming that we are all humanists. So the question is, how do we make the transition? If it is too slow, should we wait, and, well, not wait, but act as Scandinavian countries or Netherlands or Germany did, acting consistently during 30 years? Should we do that? Well, it will be too onerous for us. We cannot wait 30 years. Now, if we try to reproduce or extrapolate or replicate all these models too fast, it might create tensions. So that's a worry for me as well. So I think that there is a virtuous balance on the rate of change of growth from the current situation to eventually to find a situation where we won't be have to talk about these things anymore. So I don't know which that golden number is. So my conclusion is one open question. But I understand that we need to change and grow, but with which rate, honestly, I don't know. Now, that is related to, do we need to use quotas? So probably yes. How strong, how aggressive, how much, how many? I don't know. Do we need to give incentives for change? Yes. But if you would like to summarize my second position, we need to have a balanced growth to reach gender balance. A wise growth, not a very sharp one. I tend to be positive, as I guess that all scholars are. I'm a bit nihilistic today. Society has been, Western civilization society has been in worse situations than now, far worse, but not so stupid as we are now as a society. I'm sorry for being nihilist. You might agree with me that going back to technology and engineering, so engineering can be indeed aligned to give a solution to society's grand challenges, but technology as users in society could be a double-edged sword. We start to see a bad use of internet as a resource for obtaining information, and we start to see reinforcement of opinion and echo chambering and people in silos of opinion and more tribalism, I'm sorry to say. So I don't think that tribalism is the solution for the problem we're facing. We need to zoom out and have a wiser collective solution to this problem. So yes, unfortunately, I don't think social networks are helping with this. This is not my opinion. I don't dare to make such a strong statement. I'm just reproducing what, for instance, a female professor from MIT is stating. If you haven't read that book, I do recommend you to do so. Professor Sherry Turkle from MIT has a fantastic book entitled Reclaiming Conversation. That book is not about being against technology, but it's about rehumanizing relationships in profession and in life, which means listening more to others, engaging in constructive dialogue, understanding more our differences and the like. So yes, I think I more or less went to everything I wanted to go through, not representing a minority, to start a debate. Thank you very much.
So we have to collect possible solutions for this problem that we have deal with here from the board there. But before we want to open the floor to the public, maybe you want to make a comment or
can we react to panelists for a second?
Yeah, of course, please.
I would like to thank Celia. I think I started to thank, but I didn't conclude. So I really like to thank Celia for stating that kids and family responsibilities, they are not a woman thing. We are not making a favor to women, but saying that we have conciliation between work and family. Family and life has to be a co-responsibility. So not only we need to do that, we need to give role models for men taking co-responsibility for caring about individuals. And if we do so, since there is a communicating vessel exchange between professional life, we can apply policies for affirmative discrimination for women. If we work also collectively as a society on men concurrently taking responsibility on family responsibility. So it's a terrible error to relate childhood and caring and education to women. Thank you, Celia.
That's true. But I totally agree. But how do you find the connection between that and the lack of women in the engineering field?
If there are family responsibilities, which I understand that up to now, hitherto, they are not shared properly, that's a statistical truth. Well, if there's imbalance in the responsibilities, you need to stop your working meetings at 4 p.m. to take your children. And you need to schedule your professional responsibilities according to your family responsibilities. And since we are in a scenario where there is not a balanced situation, that creates tension. So that's the way that relates profession to family.
I just wanted to be polemic. Teresa.
No, what I think is that if that is the case, I say if the role is that family caring is taken care by women, not only children, I have to say, but also elderly, that Celia has mentioned. The thing is, what is the reason why I should make the effort to study engineering? Yeah? Because at the end, this is something that we have learned. I say I'm very old, so I have seen a lot of movies in the 70s in Spain that they say to a woman, why do you do that if what you have to do is to get married and have children and then take care of your parents, because this is your role. So the thing is, engineering is something that is being considered very much as a male, as a masculine profession or job, because at the end, I say, what is the reason why we should have make this type of effort? Yeah? So I think this is very, very, very important. So it's very much related and corresponded.
I don't think that such cliches prevail in profession now. The only ultimate solution is education at home.
They prevail not in our level, but
not in our level. No. Yeah. I'm saying in our profession. That's the focus of the debate. But they do prevail in society.
Yes,
so I think the transition from an education at home, where you see true co-responsibility, which is not balanced now, but there are changes. When this child go to society where cliches and role models prevail, that's where the system fails. So we need to act upon that part of society. And then show on the other side that engineering, apart from a fantastically beautiful intellectual challenge, has a strong societal impact. We see more and more engineering applied to societal grand challenges. That message has to percolate to society as well.
Any comment from the audience? Yes, Mark, please.
I only want to say a very short thing. We are not superwoman. We only are engineering woman. Thank you.
So maybe we can go to the boards back and to see if we have potential solutions for this unbalanced world we have now. Carlos, can you tell us what you found there?
Okay. Really, I'm impressed with the number of ideas that have come in just in 10 minutes. I have been working for all this period of participating the panelists. The total number is 91 ideas, so really it's a huge number in so short time. And it's amazing how even I can really conclude which could be the most important aspect according to this audience. For example, this area is showing STEM. That's a big concern about how we can bring women, children that can really be interested in STEM. Total number of ideas, 31. So it's number one. I can comment a little bit on that aspect. But there are quite a few other topics that people consider, I mean, you, the audience, consider that are important. For example, The second classified is education. So we believe that in our case, our concern is more related to STEM, but the second aspect is education is one of the key aspects to be contemplated. The third one is regulation in some aspects. I will mention quite a few of them. And another one that is also quite relevant is image, TV, publicity, things like that. And then there's another one that is the culture. And finally, there are some additional ideas, for example, talking what happens at work and what happens at home. So just to mention a few ones, STEM is promote, for example, STEM games, promote STEM in school, campaigns for STEM girls, things like that. So the emphasis is being put here on STEM. Concerning education, for example, is we should promote, for example, education inequality. This has been highlighted by several people, so that means that there are quite a few things that can be done here. The third one is regulation. For example, the quota has been one of the most successful ideas that have been mentioned. And at work, for example, is child gardens in enterprises and university show the different roles that women in education, what is being highlighted, should be clarified that the role should be played by the same people. There is no really difference. Another aspect that is image and publicity, I could summarize saying that somebody is proposing that we need really to think in the possibility of TV series, TV shows that are promoting the idea of women, STEM, providing models that really can signify that are not to be at home, as you were mentioning before. And I think that maybe, for example, at home, fathers forced to collect children from school, or equal maternity and paternity, aspects like those are being mentioned. So just not to take too much time, I don't know if you want to vote or we go ahead. So in such a case, I would suggest that if you want to select which could be number one action to be taken, not instead of looking in detail, I have put here titles at work, etc. And probably we can say that you can have 2 votes, and you can assign both of them to one single idea, or you can split and say one to one and another to a different topic, and maybe we can know exactly which is the classification of the ideas that you want to take into action as the first one, or just we can jump directly into the next phase. So it's up to you.
We can vote, no? Or we can discuss a little bit more, maybe one of the questions that we have here. Do we vote? Yeah.
What? So do you continue and we skip the voting? Because something that we could suggest is that based on this aspect we can try to summarize that in some way. Maybe it could be a manifesto from this audience that we, the engineering people, are thinking that should be taken into account. There are quite a few interesting ideas, and maybe it can be like a base for really starting to analyze different aspects that could be considered, especially taking into account that the STEM, that is our field, is the one that is that we have more ideas in this panel.
Let's vote then.
Let's vote?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
no.
5 minutes. Now you have.
Can I be a bit controversial before we vote? So, I would like just to foster debate in the audience. So, fostering STEM in young persons, particularly in young women. So yes, yes, yes. What else? Of course, yes. But not only. I think that we should foster. I mean, you cannot imagine the cliches that a scientist or an engineer will be monomanically devoted to work and profession. No, you need to balance between profession and life. So I think that we need to foster STEM vocations in young children, particularly for women, because it's lacking, and at the same time foster responsibility in life.
Okay, so if I understand, you propose that let's take directly, due to the number of opinions, to take directly STEM, and then to look for the second classified. Okay?
Education.
Okay, it's your proposal.
My vote to try to balance my position.
Okay.
If we say STEM and a second education, then we start to balance the position.
Okay, this is, if we take into account the number of ideas, that's is in this sense. Number one is STEM and second one is education. If you want the third one is TV shows or image, publicity and things like that. Number four, regulation. So maybe we can say, in order to continue, we can make just an acclamation and say that these are the classification based on the ideas, and we can move on. Do you think that is okay? I mean, you are the people who are deciding, I mean, the audience. So, votes in favor of that this is the final classification of our contest. Okay, so we have the conclusion. Thank you, Edward. And that's all.
Carlos, that's the manifesto you were looking for, the Bilbao DCIS manifesto on women in engineering, right?
Yeah.
Carlos, it would be great if we can take a picture of the board, yeah?
I will take all of them, so
okay,
thank you.
So,
Still, there is no discussion on how.
How, yeah.
If we agree that we need to foster STEM and education, how do we do it? And when and to whom?
This is the next phase of design thinking.
So the floor is open for the audience. Any question? Any comment? Yeah. Susana.
So I will give my personal opinion on that, or my personal experience. So I have twins. One is a boy and one is a girl. They are 3 years old. And the girl is asking all the time, I'm saying, today is the day of the niño. Today is the, and she's asking, but is the day of the niña? Yes. It's a day of boys and girls, no matter what you say. And I realized that even from this age, from 3 years old, they are trying to classify themselves in a group. And they are always trying to identify roles. And even from the school, they don't make the effort also to provide this model. For example, they analyze painters. And all the painters that they analyze, they are also male painters, for example. So these simple examples, they need to start. So even from the before primary school, well, they are defining more or less the models and the roles. I think it's
something. I recommend that you take your children to one exhibition that is in the Ministry of Science now. It's called Mujeres Ingeniosas. It's about not only engineers, but are women that have done something that is ingenious, yeah, some kind of engineering, but they are also scientists, and it runs from Ada Lovelace up to people who are now, because on Tuesday we had a presentation of the exhibition, and two of those women were there. So I mean, so it's a very small exhibition. It's in the hall of the ministry, so interesting to see for children, yeah, rather than from functionaries that we have. Okay, convinced. Okay.
Also, I want to propose to all the people that are in the governments of the university that the buildings of the university can have a woman name, because we have women also, women, excuse me, in the engineering, in the science, and not only, for example, in this building, all the rooms have names of men, and I'm sure there are a lot of doctors, engineers, and physics, and that are women, I'm sure.
These initiatives make all sense, and they should be inclusive. Can I ignite the discussion? Oh, I don't need to do that. I was about to say May I know the opinion of men in the audience about ways to improve the participation of women in engineering? You're not in minority, you're half-half. Thank you.
No. Combining STEM and education, I think that this must be done at the very early stage of the education phases, at the primary school. And for that, what we need is professionals that are very strong in STEM topics at these early stages. And I think this must be promoted from the government in order to dignify the profession of teachers and to improve the STEM knowledge of teachers in our country.
I agree, but I don't think that the problem is the lack of knowledge of STEM in primary school. It's a matter of attitude and vocation, because young child, they see society, and society still has role models which are biased. So we need to act upon society. So education is, we need to re-educate society, and that's a gigantic challenge. So it starts at home, but with this, when this child go into society, it's not a disciplinary education. I think it's an education in attitudes and vocation, and they mirror society. It's society that's not properly balanced.
Well, if you thank you. I am probably the only non-engineer in this, but I have a PhD sociology Berkeley and past assistant professor of sociology Brown and associate professor of public policy. So this is before I changed career. As a sociologist, I have taken part in many panels of this sort, and people who devoted their life on these issues, basically, on the you debated. And I was quite impressed, first of all, by seeing that the panelists and the audience hit almost all the main issues. That's very impressive, really. That's really good work for organizers, too. I was very impressed because the people I listened to wrote 7 books on the topic, women engineering, why, etc. There's lots of research in sociology. I'd like to only challenge one assumption, and I took my inspiration from Eduardo, who wanted to be the person who wants to challenge a little bit. And mine is an insight, because at Georgia Tech I did teach ethics for engineers, and there was a class of about 180 students. A big minority were women. Women was the minority, maybe 10, maybe 12. So what the premise here, there is something that STEM is basically intellectually very challenging, and some of the best brains, best students should evolve toward that. I disagree with this. I mean, there are things that are incredibly challenging. I mean, philosophy is very challenging. There are not that many people, I mean, with, I don't know, like John Rawls or people like that are incredible brains, or people who are trespassing in humanities, like a person I work with in the Institute for Advanced Study for a year, Albert Hirschman, Clifford Geertz, the anthropologist. And what I discovered is that quite a few women, especially who took the ethics, do not in the end go to engineering because they don't find it intellectually challenging enough. Because the women students were more or less, and I definitely agree that everybody has multiple, that was a great point, genders. In each man too there are more than one gender. That's correct from the psychological point of view. Of course, to try to repress it. And the more people repress, the worse it is actually, the female side. But what I find is that in general, the women, everything said, they want to be intellectually challenged, and they are more idealist than men in that text. So you have to explain them what is it that they will do intellectually challenging in engineering. And I've seen that, unfortunately, at least as far as Georgia Tech is concerned, I don't know in Spain, ethics and engineering, they didn't even want to teach. They had nobody to teach. It's very important because there are great hypos. So I will give them hypos, especially I will base on my experience as a lawyer, attorney. There was great hypos. I will try to make my own. And women were very receptive to the ethical dilemmas of it, much more than males. Male had the attitude that let's get the job, let's make the money, type thing. Women have that more spiritual dimension. So I think in curriculum, in engineering curriculum, if one can integrate those ethical questions and show the intellectually challenging dimensions of engineering and some real dilemmas, there are no easy solutions to those dilemmas. That will also help to attract some of the best minds, because I am also seeing from my daughter, I mean, with all honesty, she's very good, and she'll probably become the valedictorian in her class. But engineering isn't challenging her enough. So she wants to study philosophy, for instance, or PP in Oxford. She finds more challenging. So I think that has to be taken into account as part of this. And then, because in the end, without it, engineering becoming too much of a macho culture, but the existence of feminist man, which is great to see, and it's off-putting, I think, to many women. So I think some of it, not only social level, because some of the solutions are very difficult to implement, like you cannot stipulate TV series, or you can turn the role model into black and white type things, which may backfire. Because, you know, as a sociologist, I'm very much aware of the unintended consequence of social action, how things often backfire. It doesn't lead to the intended direction. But probably it should start from the engineering curriculum itself by opening up to other professions, bringing, like people in sociology who study discrimination against women in engineering, the professionals and different challenges, etc. I think it will then attract really, really top people, and the role models will be created not artificially, but organically. Like it is. That's all I wanted to add. Thank you very much.
May I fight back? Because this was an outstanding contribution. I would like to respectfully fight back. So first, I don't dare to comment on your position that perhaps female are looking for more intellectually challenging problems, because I don't know. I guess an anthropologist or a sociologist would say. But my intuition says that it might be. I tend to think that intellect is not genetic, but comes from education. Once you're born. So the intellectual capabilities are congenital, but then it's mainly education. So education will make the difference. But you were touching about in two very crucial aspects: ethics and perhaps humanities. Now, on the ethics side, you say, talking about technology, the artificial intelligence community is taking the lead. And this is at the front wave of an emergent topic. So AI is so close to human intelligence and cognition that they need to incorporate ethics up front. So now when you see the roadmaps for research in AI, they talk about a human-centric, humanity-oriented artificial intelligence. So the paradox might be that we'll have an ethical AI coexisting with human stupidity. I'm saying this because if we have ethics built in education and in profession, ethics encompasses feminism. If you have integrity and ethics, you endorse gender balance and feminism. That's what I think. And then the other side of the story is you start to see that engineering is going into the challenges of society. We need to bring not just ethics, which is an intellectual skill, but humanities as well. We start to see there's more and more multidisciplinarity in the education of engineering. I think that from humanities also you bring in naturally, intrinsically feminism. So I think these are crucial aspects of our discussion. Thank you.
Antonio, please.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to to say thank you to Paco, Marisa, and Carlos for bringing about this very, very relevant topic to disease. I think that's a very complex topic with a lot of opinions. In my opinion, also I agree that it's complex, but we should add at the earliest stage, about 6, 7, 8 years. Boys and girls are biased at this age. If you have children, most of you have known that, I mean, they want to belong to a group, so they don't be out of the group, and they wouldn't like to be out of the group, and they are already biased to the kind of things that are supposed to be done by girls and kind of things that are supposed to do by boys. So this is a very important age. And at this age, it is important for them to have role models. They may come from teachers, but they may come from the other aspects. For instance, in my experience, a very interesting action is one that took place in Sevilla and also in Navarra. There is a theater play that is titled "I Want to Be a Scientist." This is a theater play show that goes to the primary schools, and in Navarra, for instance, it has more than 1,500 young students already that have seen the show. And it tries to approach with female role models, young girls, in order for them to be able to see that there is also STEM in the female side of society. That is very difficult for them at this age to realize. And another question that to me is intriguing is that the Spain chapter of Circus and Sisters was organizing a panel last year in November also about women and technology, with 5 panelists coming from leadership positions in industry. And one of the questions that arose was, how with your successful career are you able to combine your familiar responsibilities with your successful career? And the answer was another question. If that was a men's panel, would you ask the same question? And I think that's very important to see where we are now. So sometimes there are intangible things that are already stated in society, and sometimes we are not conscious about them, but they are there. And it's very difficult to change something that you don't realize that is there. So maybe that's another problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. That was a really good point. Jose?
Yeah, I was just thinking about what we do at our department, and to attract students from secondary school and high school to our program in electrical and computer engineering. Our department organizes events to disseminate the program, and with teams that include professors and students. And I was just realizing that, in fact, always students are both boys and girls. Although in our program we have normally just about 10% of girls, in the new students, but we always tend to involve both girls and boys in these teams to disseminate the program and attract students to our programs. Just an idea, so to organize these events in schools and high schools, involving, in this case, particularly girls, to show we are also here, come also to our programs.
I'd like to comment something. For me, the worrying thing is that, at least in my university is doing this, we are trying to approach STEM to girls, but we do not succeed. I mean, so there's something we are missing. Because Teresa told, it's even worse, the situation now, than it was maybe 10 years ago. So I don't know what we are missing. Maybe I agree with Antonio that it's something that we have very inside and we don't realize actually that.
May I, Marisa? I think like to react to this reflection. I really don't want to talk. I would like to listen and learn, but I cannot hold myself. So because I think that we're missing a piece. We're fragmenting too much the problem, all of us, and I think that we're missing one point. So of course we need to improve in individual vocations and attitudes. But we need to show how relationships are. And I'm not talking about partner relationships. I think that we need to show role models, not based upon one individual, one fantastic man or woman who is a fantastic professional. We need to do that, of course, very much indeed. We need to show the role model, a virtuous model of a group of people where you have naturally men and women coexisting, and the way they relate each other shows respect, professional respect, integrity, and there's natural balance. We need to show relationships, working relationships in the context of this work debate panel. And we only concentrate on individuals alone. That's a prerequisite, but that is not enough. We need to show how we can improve it in professional relationships, where gender is so naturally balanced that it's transparent eventually. We're far from that situation.
Yes, I would like to add something. I don't know if you have seen a TED Talk or you have ever have seen a talk about a woman, I don't remember now her name. She's a graduate from Stanford University, mechanical engineer, and she talks about some of the things that happen when you as a girl are playing when you are a little girl with the things you can find in what she considers the pink corridor of the Toys R Us. Yeah? Compared to your brother that who is working with construction models, with Lego, or with something like that. Yeah? So this is very different because at the end, when that's what she says, yeah. When you go to school, to high school, or you go to the college, and you face something like descriptive geometrics or things like that, you need some spatial views that your boymates they have, and you don't, yeah, because you have another things. You have played a lot with those plays that you have in the pink corridor of the Toys R Us. And the thing is that, of course, when you see someone who needs your care, you will have your care. And maybe your brother, who is has been playing since very little, she was a very little boy with the construction models, she doesn't care about that person who needs care, who is normally a child or an elder person. Yeah? So there's a lot of things to say also about that. So this woman, that I don't remember her name, but I will try to, and I will try to email you, she decided to start the company with plays for women, for girls, but that could promote this type of things in your brain that helps you. For example, something that is, I don't know if it's a myth or it's a reality, that women, we cannot read maps. Yeah, there was a book that was something like that. Yeah, that that's something that comes from your early childhood and with the things that you have been playing when your brain was being constructed. So it's not a question of also of what you see around, but also with the things that you do and you play when you're a girl. In my case, for example, as we have talked about personal cases, I have an older brother, and I played very much with my brother's place, yeah, because it was my, with the toys of my brother, with the cars and with the construction things, because my parents decided, okay, we don't bring dolls here because there's no need, because this girl is okay with the cars and the construction things. And maybe that's the reason why I became an engineer. Yeah, I had a doll and I tried to make some haircutting, and it was such a disaster that I decided that dolls were not that my thing. So at the end, I think it has a lot of thing what you leave when your brain is being developed.
So we're coming to the closing. Any other comment from the audience?
Yeah.
Antonio,
Just as the audience. Perhaps I would like to raise another question, comment to the panelists and perhaps to the audience. We have been talking a lot about education, promotion of STEM vocations in children, and that the mentality has to change. But we have also seen that there is a lack of women in leadership positions. And that is not only because there are few women studying STEM degrees. And when you look at the women that have arrived at the STEM degree, that have got a degree, and they develop their career, and you compare the rate at which people abandon their career in men and women, in women it is much higher. And when you get surveys about which are the causes of this, the dominant answer for women is lack of career growth. Is that only, well, the question is that only a matter of education, of roles at home, responsibility at home? I don't think so. I think there is something more.
There is a paper in Nature that says that, I don't know, it's something like 30% of scientists abandon their career after the first child, and only 5% of men. Yeah? So that's data. Yeah.
So
scientific data.
I think that Paco is really touching the point. If there is one, there's a backbone pillar in this problem that we're talking about. I would like to react with three reflections. The first is one aseptic diagnosis of why we have very few women in leadership positions, which I only partially agree with, is that it takes time to grow. It could take 10, 20, 30 years. And we have not been establishing in place policies for gender balance until very, very recently. So there is a dynamics. There's a change takes time. So that will be one partial explanation. The second is that very unfortunately, so we agree in this side of the panel, I think, society on average tends to relate caring and family responsibilities with women. That's a terrible error. So that justifies why there is a bottleneck in career growth that's not coming from within the profession, it's coming from responsibilities beyond the profession. And third, I think that eventually the only solution would be, dear Teresa, that we show at home girls and boys to play with geometry, and we show girls and boys to take care of humans and play with dolls if necessary.
So I wanted to ask you for just one wrap-up sentence or wrap-up statement for the closing. Maybe you did that, Edward, but as you want, in the order you want. Maybe from Celia to here, okay, because she's willing to do that.
Okay. I want only that people here in the room go home tomorrow thinking one thing is when you take a decision or take a policy or take every research you do, think if you will do in the same way if you are acting on a woman or acting on a woman or on a man. I mean, if an employee of yours asks for a day for going home, consider if it's a woman or it's a man, and you take the same decision. And because this is a rule we have in publicity. If you want to know if an advertisement is sexist, change the role and put a man instead of woman, and if it's strange, then it's sexist. So the same for all of you in every decision you do, in every position you take. Consider if you will take the same decision as a woman or a man, and then you will remove the gender roles, because the problem is gender roles that we are maintaining, because we are maintaining this. We think women and men are the same, but we think males and females are not the same. And this is the problem.
Difficult to summarize in a minute, and I would like to end up with one slogan to oversimplify the complexity of this topic. But perhaps it would be, so one would be, so we need to grow and change in a balanced manner. So we need to grow with a balanced progress to reach balance. That will be one summary. There is a virtuous, wise, particular rate of growth in the change. The second will be, hey, most of us, I think, we are educators or concerned with education. So the second part of my position will be meta-education. We need to educate the educators. And I think that the community has been growing. There was no discussion in the panel nor from the audience in male chauvinism or microsexism. We are far from that point, so we grew. So we just talked about actions and policies. And one is to educate men and women so that science and technology is a natural option and a potential vocation for men and women compatible with the rest of life that requires co-responsibility. And that would be it. Thank you.
I just want to say something that I am glad to see the audience today, because I don't know, in the first editions of this conference, we were Dori, Mar, and me, and we were the only ones. So we were very rara avis in this case. Yeah. So it's good that we see young women here in this conference. And I want also to tell you that if you have ideas that we can use in the, we are, as I am now in a position that, as I cannot decide myself, but I can influence somehow. So, I say, but I don't know how much will I be there. So, rush. Yeah?
Okay, this may not be too much of a concluding statement, but I think there also has to be some level of education of women on how to promote their own career and to make themselves successful after they start their career. I worked as a manager, a low-level manager in industry, and what I saw was that in the industry, every year we gave an average of 5% raise to the people that did well in the company in your group. And when we had an opening, we hired somebody from outside, we gave them 10%. So you see a lot of people, changing jobs in order to promote their salary, to increase their salary. And also, one way that I saw people, you're expected to learn more about your profession from after you start working. And what I saw was that people, once they came to a plateau in terms of what they knew in their own group, they would move laterally within the company in order to expand their knowledge of the company. If I look around at people that take these strategies, I saw a lot more men changing jobs, and I see a lot more men changing jobs within the company and between the companies. So somehow women have to be educated to do these types of things to promote themselves as well. And I don't have any statistics to back it up, but I just didn't see too many women doing it.
So I'm going to try to summarize using all the things complementary to the ones they said, education, and I would try to be a bit positive, because I think that there is a momentum from everything, and I think that this is the momentum for equality among men and women, and I will try to tell you why I think that. I think that because when money comes into the table, and when industry, when companies are interested in bringing women to technology, this will happen. And the industry is willing to have talent, and we are not getting enough talent out of men. And the industry is willing to have STEAM talent. So I think we will have the support we need to finally find the resources to make all the things that we have to do in all the levels that we have to do. I think that 30 years ago it wasn't the same. It was enough with the men we had. So it was interesting, but it was more a social problem than an economic problem. That's something coming from the industry. So now we are in that moment. Let's take advantage of that momentum, no? that we have. And I would also remark that part of that we have to go into the business part. We have to sell this different to women. We have to sell STEAM in a different way. So let's make them play with different things, but we are of course equal in rights, but we have all the advertisements we see on TV, they find that they classify us and they try to touch the points, the adequate points for women and the adequate points for men. So let's try to touch the right points that bring women to STEAM.
So from the audience we will take the word from Carlos probably, or...
Just to remind you that for the next 5 minutes, the exhibition area of ideas will be open. You can come and review and see what you have said. Second, we will try to list the different ideas that have come up from the audience. And for sure, we will send to our General Director in order that she can take into account what you have said. So thank you very much.
So I just like to thank you, the 5 panelists. They did a great job today, and to the audience that came here and was supporting this panel. There are a few things we have to say, so don't leave. So what is the... So you have a few announcements, probably related to dinner, but... Okay, so I want to show you a video. They can leave the table. So, no, we don't. We will have dinner in a couple of hours. So we wanted to show you, I will take advantage of having you all here because in the restaurant there is no video overhead projector. So I encourage you to come to next DZIS that will take place in Segovia next year, in the edition 2020, that is the 35th, I think. And so this is just an invitation to come, so have a look and enjoy.
Segovia ilumina el cielo.
Es un placer invitarles a celebrar la 35ª edición del Congreso Internacional de Diseño de Circuitos y Sistemas Integrados
wait a second.
En la ciudad de Segovia, declarada Patrimonio de la Humanidad en el año 85. La ciudad del acueducto, obra de ingeniería civil con 2000 años de historia, estará encantada de acoger este congreso referente en el ámbito de la electrónica y les va a ofrecer, sin duda, una experiencia cultural y gastronómica para no olvidar.
So we have a woman in Segovia, a woman, and she's the mayor, and she is just inviting you to come. So please don't forget that.
¿Queréis esperar al final para darles un regalo?
Pero lo vamos a dar nosotros completamente.
Bueno.